Hi, Richard. Welcome to our Surge panel or conversation, I should say. We're really grateful for Cundall being a sponsor for multiple years in a row and for your personal involvement in our Surge mission. So thanks so much for being here. I just want to get started right away. Could you talk a little bit about, what you guys do as a company and also why it was important for Cundall to sponsor and partner with Surge not just this year, but for the last few years?
Well, I guess as a company, one of our visions is to be agents of change. And one of our missions is to positively impact our communities. And as part of our 2020 strategy that we put in at the beginning of this year, we wanted to be a sustainable, ethical and caring business. So when I think of it like this, what Surge is doing is driving change, if you like, to make sure that everybody has access to safe water and sanitation. And that's a basic human right. So supporting Surge's efforts in this regard is very much aligns with our mission, and it is exactly what we believe in as a business. It's exactly what we should be doing.
Well, thank you. And I see you've got this beautiful backdrop behind you, which is the office that won an award last year at our first ever sustainability design competition. Could you please talk a little bit about that and why you were inspired to do something that was sustainable and, that basically looked after the health and well-being? Because the specific award that you won was Health and Wellbeing Initiative of the Year. And I just even remember that our judges were so impressed that some of our judges even said that they wanted to take your example and share with their own company so that they could implement something similar.
Well, that's very humbling that they thought that, and I guess it endorses a little bit of that, that we did the right thing. I guess as a business, we've always been committed to sustainability. I mean, the business has been going since 1976. I haven't been there that long, mind you. I might look it, but I haven't been. But sustainability has been at the heart of the business since the very beginning. But the problem when you put the label of sustainability on something in the context of the construction sector and buildings in particular, a lot of it's hidden. A lot of it is really only visible to construction professionals. They only understand, people understand, I guess, the principle of some of the things, but they can't see it and they don't really know. It's not really tangible for them. The great thing about health and well-being is you live it, you touch it, every single day you're working in that environment and you see the benefits of it. It's very much focused on our people who are at the core of our business, and we wouldn't be the successful business we are without them. So it's kind of an investment back into our people. But probably something that goes beyond that is it's educating people, it's influencing people, it's changing culture. So, we've done things around the pure sustainability elements of using recycled material, designing the office space so we get maximum daylight and we reduce energy using energy efficient systems. So that's the kind of, let's call it the sustainability label. But the health and well-being label was the softer things. It was making sure that the desks were located in places where people had good views and they had access to daylight. So, when people were getting a little bit stressed, they could look out the window, and we chose an office building that has a fantastic view. So that helps as well. We put facilities in there that gave people the opportunity to break out, take a break, they're giving them options for good food choices, having education programs around health and fitness, actually encouraging people to use the stairs in the building, which when you're on the 32nd floor is a bit challenging. I've only managed to get as far as going down 32 floors. I haven't been brave enough to go up yet. So it's all those sorts of things, and then giving them access to amenities that are nearby. So down by the marina, they can walk around, they could go out at lunchtime. There's food and beverage options for them. They've got access to shops, and then hopefully the change in culture will be driven into people's home lives and then into their wider families and into their wider community. And if we make change like that, that's got a much, much bigger impact than perhaps some more of the hidden features of sustainability.
I think that's all really incredible, but I'm making a note that the next time, well, we haven't been to your offices yet, but if we do visit, we're going to walk up 32 flights of stairs and walk down because I think
Well,
that's a
if
very important,
let me
important
know in
part.
advance. Let me know in advance because I'll make sure that we've got facilities like defibrillators and oxygen ready for you.
No, it's a challenge. We're taking it on. Now we can like make sure we see this office in person. So yeah,
Yeah.
congratulations on last year's win, and we hope that this year we'll have an equally, deserving entry for that category. So just moving into the theme of this year's event or gala and what our designers have been working on all year. We started this, we put out the design brief right in the midst of like this uncertainty, and we're still sort of living in this time with COVID. And so we really wanted to create this inspirational sort of challenge this year. So we challenged all our designers to design for a better future. So,
Right.
Just like giving you that question, because honestly, it's not, the designers are part of the conversation, but everybody in the industry plays a role in creating a better future. So, of course, you've explained in quite a lot of detail your office, but are there other things that you guys are doing to create a better future beyond all this amazing, the leading by example that you did with your office?
Yeah, I think we are. We recently became the first carbon neutral consultancy globally, which was endorsed by the Carbon Trust, and that was based on how we operate our business. But as part of that, we developed a carbon positive action plan because the reality is we lease office space. We're a consultancy business, so we lease office space, and in the grand scheme of things, our impact is not really that significant. We take it very seriously, so we want to be carbon neutral, which is what we've achieved now, and we want to be carbon positive. But part of our carbon action plan goes beyond what we do as a business. We want to drive our business in the first instance from net zero to net positive by 2025. But part of what we're doing as well as our carbon positive action plan is to focus on our projects and focus on our thought leadership. So for our projects, for example, we're looking for them to be net zero carbon and I should say nature positive by 2025 as well. So we want to influence our clients. We want to, I suppose, share our experiences and share our knowledge so that our clients aren't daunted by everything that sometimes surrounds sustainability and there's a lot of media attention on our climate crisis, and sometimes it can be quite overwhelming. And what we try to do is break that down into information that our clients can manage and that's actually relevant to their business, to show them how they can make changes as well. But the best way of showing people how they can make change is to show them how you make change, which is why it was so important for us to do it.
Yes, I actually have a couple of follow-up questions based on what you said. How have your clients accepted this sort of this culture? I don't know if you want to call it a culture shift, but this stand that Cundall is taking. Like, how are your clients open to having sustainability, like being part of their projects? And is there an additional cost to it? And are they willing to accept that? So just talk a little bit more about the client perspective and how do we, because a lot of like designers and other people are going to be listening to this. So you convince the person paying the check to take this on?
Look, I suppose like most designers will tell you the same thing. We've had mixed reaction. I mean, this isn't, by the way, this isn't something that we've done overnight. Driving sustainability into our projects is something that we've done for many, many years. It's just now got targets, key performance indicators, let's call it that, within the industry, the things that we have to aim for to stop our planet's temperature rise and try and get to where we need to be with regards to the Paris Agreement. So when you put it in the context like that, governments are making commitments, and therefore, if our clients have to, I mean, let me go back a step actually and say they have to. They want to. Virtually all of I don't think I've ever met any client that doesn't have a desire to create something more sustainable. They are constrained by their budgets, and what we're trying to demonstrate through analysis and benchmarking and any other data that we have available, is that if you truly optimize a design from the beginning, it doesn't necessarily have to cost you any more. If you know, and that doesn't apply to every project. Some projects there is a premium to taking a responsible, sustainable approach to development. But the one thing it will generally always have is a life cycle benefit. You know, if you reduce energy and you reduce water consumption and, you know, you have more sustainable materials, then the whole life cycle cost of a project will reduce, and that's a long-term benefit. The other thing I was going to say is that one area that's really, I mean, it's been around for quite some time, but there seems to be a much greater emphasis on it now, is people develop projects, they develop buildings, sometimes for assets, sometimes for resale. But a lot of institutional investors now are insisting on, in their acquisition strategy, they will only buy a building that hits certain sustainable targets. So if you don't actually take on sustainability and really work with it, nobody's going to buy your building. People will vote, you know, and I've seen it in the office market in Dubai. People have moved from older building stock that isn't particularly sustainable into newer building stock that is. And there are some very high profile projects in Dubai that are focused on sustainability, and people want to be there. So, and when it comes down to it, for example, if I use our business as an example, we pay a little bit more in our rent for being in the building we're in, but it's worth it. You know, it's not just about the cheapest building, because that increased investment is an investment in our people, and we get that back, you know.
Yeah, and it's so important, like you and your reference, like the Paris Agreement, and just understanding that we all play this role in changing the landscape, right? Like we're all part of this global environment, and we're all part of this planet. And like earlier, Richard, you said something like you're doing a small part, but it's like it's actually quite a big part, because all those employees that are in your office, everybody who works and like, you know, continues with this mandate of like building sustainability and health and wellness into your initiatives are influenced. And if they go on and work at other companies, right, you'd hope that they would take some of this ethos with them into that space. You mentioned something when you were talking about your process. You talked about being carbon neutral, but you also said something about nature forward. Is that correct?
Yeah, being nature positive as well.
Nature positive. Can you talk a little bit more? Because everybody talks about carbon footprint and carbon neutral, but this is the first time in one of these conversations someone's talked about a nature positive. So if you could explain what that means and how you do it.
Yeah, I suppose there's the thing about carbon is it places a huge amount of emphasis on energy, and any carbon emitting source like transportation and industry and things like that. And of course, the simplest way of solving that problem is just flood everything with renewable energy. So if I put it in the context of an example, you'll see what I mean. So let's just take two examples of renewable energy. Let's take a solar farm, or let's take a wind farm. So now we need to build a wind farm and a solar farm to actually feed this insatiable appetite for energy. Okay, so how are we going to do that? Are we going to destroy forests to build wind farms? Are we going to take over prime agricultural land? Are we going to impose on natural habitat, where you're part of the ecological cycle is disrupted? So if you're going to come up with a solution, it has to be a holistic solution. It has to work, because the problem when you do things like this, and let's just say deforestation, great, okay, so now we've got our renewable energy, but the problem with deforestation is you then create sort of a barren landscape, and it leads to flooding, it leads to landslides. So that's what I mean about nature positive. It's not just thinking about the small piece of the puzzle, it's thinking about the bigger piece and the overall impact it has. And so that's why driving down our demand is so important, because the reality is we have to go down the road of more renewable technologies and renewable energy. But what we really want to do is to make sure that the space required for that technology is the least it needs to be.
Yeah.
So
It's incredible. Like as you were talking, and before you even said holistic, I'm like, oh, well, it sounds like everything you're describing is this full service holistic model, and that like aligns so closely with what Surge does. Because even with us, we don't just go in and say, here you go, we fixed a well or we built a well. It is really about the full community well-being, right? We look at
yeah,
water, sanitation, hygiene, and most recently even menstrual health, and really looking at like, yeah, again, the full picture. And the reason at Surge we care so much about the environment is because I always say that the global water crisis, in many cases, is a reaction to our bad treatment of the environment. When you talk about bad water quality, it's because a
yeah,
lot of times humans have come in and contaminated the water through, factories, but even simple things of like trash and things like that, or like
yeah,
the
yeah,
detergents we use, the products we use. So it all this it's really amazing to hear you speak, because I just love that you constantly have the big global picture in perspective, because
yeah,
that's so important in understanding our roles and our contributions, whether it's Surge as a nonprofit and the work that we do, or as you as Cundall as like a global consultancy working on all these amazing projects and the influence you can have. So, just
yeah.
thank you for being a leader in that space.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the other part of that as well is, when you talk about being carbon neutral, I mean, part of our carbon neutral journey is there's only so much we can do to reduce our carbon emissions. And so the next thing you have to do is you have to do offsets. But there aren't enough offsets in the world to offset everybody.
Right.
And offsetting is really investing in these kind of larger scale, sustainable and renewable, let's call it renewable infrastructure schemes, because that's the bit I was talking about, is that if we don't reduce our demand, and that was our driver was reduce demand, reduce demand, reduce demand. And then when we've got our demand down as much as we possibly can, offset. But we're offsetting a much smaller demand, because if everybody just goes straight to offset, then we'll never be able to achieve it. And all that's going to happen is you're going to drive this demand for renewable energy that's going to destroy our natural habitat.
Everybody needs to hear you speak. This is a talk that needs to be like spread far and wide in the industry, because yeah, you're basically addressing the root cause. Something else that Surge does, we try to address the root cause of
Yeah.
problems. So that's again incredible. So as we sort of wrap up this conversation, I have a couple of questions to ask you, because it's we always talk about, we're talking a lot today about company and the design industry, but there's individual choices that we can all make to reduce our water footprint. So I have a question. What is your drink of choice in the morning? Is it tea or coffee?
Well, sorry.
It's a trick question. There's a right answer here, but go on.
No, but I actually do always start off the day with a couple of glasses of water.
Oh, very good. That's exactly the water you're drinking. You pass the test. After the water, when you want maybe caffeine, what do you choose? Or decaffeinated version?
Well, yeah, I must admit I do like coffee, and I like strong coffee, so it's not decaffeinated. So I probably get that one wrong.
Well, most people, especially in the culture in this part of the world, like their cappuccinos or their Americanos or their coffees. And I'm a green tea drinker myself. I have my tea right here. But just something
like this, my coffee with non-dairy milk.
That's good. That's going in the right direction. But the reason I asked the question is really just to share with everyone listening and with you that it takes about 40 liters to make this cup of tea. So I'm drinking 40 liters of water now when you look at the whole supply chain. So actually it's 30 liters, and your cup of coffee. So that's bad in itself. Like, I'm not saying that proudly, but your cup of coffee is about 140 liters of water. So just having people understand that every single choice we can make, and we're not asking you to switch away from coffee, but there are other choices you can make, whether, if you're deciding to eat a steak, for example, if you're a meat eater, maybe don't eat that steak that often, right? Eat a smaller portion, and eventually switch to, how in our everyday decisions can we reduce our consumption from this virtual water, the water that we don't see. With that, just something to like end on the softer inspirational note, right? We've talked a lot about sustainability and, carbon neutrality and nature. I love the whole nature positive, I kind of want to call it nature forward way of thinking. But, At the core of it, Surge is driven with our values of love and community and equality, and really just a passion for making our world a better place. And like we want to create a better future, and we're doing it through addressing a very basic need. But the reason we address that basic need is because we want children and people everywhere to have a chance of dreaming and achieving that better future. So you can answer this either personally or from a company perspective, but how do you align with that ethos of like dreaming for this better future, or just even from like a core values perspective?
Well, it's interesting. I think your mission and a lot of our mission and our values are very similar. I believe we both have a passion and commitment to improve the world we live in. The great thing about what you guys do is you see it instantly. When you go to a community in a village and you're creating like such impactful change, that's changing people's lives immediately. Ours is probably a little bit more of a slow burner, but hopefully we'll get there. But I think I think the biggest impact we can make is through our industry leadership. We do a lot of what we call thought leadership events, whether it be webinars, whether it be talks to our clients, talks at, say, schools or universities, and and all of that is done for free. That's not fee earning work. It's really just about knowledge sharing. As the saying goes, knowledge is power, and the more people that have the knowledge, the more choices that people can make. And that's really, you touched on, say, for a second ago about what you choose, how many steaks you eat a week, maybe, and stuff like that. I moved over to a largely plant-based diet, and most of my family did. Not because, it wasn't anything to do with animal rights or anything like that. It was more about understanding a little more about the amount, the impact agriculture has on the environment, and that I'm a consumer, and my bad consumer behavior is actually causing destruction of natural habitat somewhere else in the world, which is great because it doesn't affect me. So why do I care? Well, I should care, and I don't actually need to eat as much meat. And I can choose other things. It's like it comes to transportation as well. We're consumers in that as well. So I think as a society, we need to look at consumerism. I think what we try to do is explain to people more broadly the impact various sources or areas have on our sustainable planet, and then really try and give people enough knowledge so that they can make choices. So I think we align quite closely with our values in that regard. And I think, if you can influence a few people and they can influence a few more people, you've got this incredible momentum going.
We like to call that momentum the ripple effect. So we definitely closely align. And with that, thank you so much, Richard, for being this ambassador for a better future, both personally and for Cundall. And we're so grateful for your, I think it's third year, it might even be more, sponsorship.
I think it's 3, yeah.
Yeah, as a community developer sponsor. So thank you so much, and have a great day.
Shilpa, thank you very much, and it's an honor to be involved with Surge. So thank you for allowing us.